7. The Purple-Eyed Fourcroy. Maya had an impression of elaborately carved walls and stairs twining away from the hall and light spilling in from the courtyard ahead, but those first few seconds she was whispering so fiercely at Valko that nothing else was quite in focus. "What are you doing?" she was saying. "We can't just wander in like this." But of course, by then she already had, and, what's more, had brought James right in through the front door with her. He was straining now to reach the wildly complicated metal railings that slithered up around pairs of marble pillars on either side of the entryway. "Look, it's squids," said James. Well, true, there might be something aquatic going on in those patterns of coiled iron, but Maya had other things on her mind at the moment. "Shh," she said, and tightened her grip on his hand another notch or two. "Come on, Valko, let's go." "You know who those people outside were?" said Valko, scanning the walls and doorways with his bright gray eyes. "The dolphin's parents." "You're kidding," said Maya. They hadn't looked very much like parents to her, so young and so radiant. It twisted something sharp in her, thinking how old and tired her mother would look placed next to that beautiful woman stepping across the threshold with such confidence and grace. They can't be old enough to have a kid our age, can they? "They're rich," said Valko, as if that explained it all. "Hey, and look at this. There he is, your possible Uncle Fourcroy." By the inner door there was a panel with names and buzzers. She pulled James up the 2 marble steps to the door to see for herself, and there it was, Henri de Fourcroy, in tiny handwriting that looked about 1,000,000 years old. He hadn't been in the phone book, but here he was all the same. "Can I push the button?" asked James. "No," said Maya. "Not even if he's really truly our uncle?" said James. At that moment, a voice on the intercom cleared its throat. It sounded almost amused. "Dear children," it said in a very French sort of English, "if you have come here for visiting me, then you should certainly continue up the stairs on the right, should you not? 4th floor." "You pressed that button," said Maya under her breath to James. His eyes were wide. He gave his head a shake, staring all the time at the panel on the wall that had so unexpectedly begun to speak. "I did not," he said, using his ordinary voice, the voice that carried so well on playgrounds, in classrooms, and on public buses. "Excuse us," said Valko into the intercom in his best French, which was still significantly better than Maya's best French. "Excuse us for disturbing you, monsieur." "But you aren't disturbing me at all," said the voice. "And if I am your uncle, then we should definitely converse, is that not so? I am unlatching the door now. Here." And there was a click from the double-glass doors ahead of them as the latch was released. Valko caught the door with his hand and then looked back at Maya with a questioning shrug. And she... what could she say in her defense? The voice speaking to them over the intercom, like the elegant young man she knew it belonged to, had a certain magnetic allure. Indeed, it was one of the pleasantest, most appealing voices Maya had ever heard, at once friendly and welcoming and warm. It was a voice that inspired confidence, even trust, and there had been a salamander on the cabinet of earths. Yes, she was curious about all the salamanders. That was probably part of it, too. "Be good children," said the voice as an afterthought, "and bring up my mail, if you would, on the table in the vestibule. Merci bien." The stairwell was beautiful, too, more loops and tendrils in the stained-glass windows bringing light into the stairway from the courtyard and back. Maya clutched Monsieur de Fourcroy's packet of letters in one hand and James's warm palm in the other. She was surprising herself by walking so bravely up these stairs, and she wasn't sure yet whether she liked that feeling. "Your Uncle Fourcroy," said Valko more than once as they climbed the stairs, and he shook his head in disbelief. Maya tried to shut him up with a glare, but the stairs were a bit too shadowy for glares. "Remember to be very polite," she said to James. "He's not really our uncle, some kind of very, very distant cousin, maybe, so just be polite." But when they got to the landing of the 4th floor and the dark wooden door swung open before them, James stuck out his free hand as if there were no doubt about any of it at all. "Bonjour, Uncle Cousin." And the brown-haired man who had opened the door laughed aloud and shook James's hand with mock seriousness. "But I haven't met you all," he said. "Not all of you, I don't believe." "I'm James Davidson," said James. "You sort of met me and Maya the first day we were in Paris, right? Remember that?" "And I'm Valko," said Valco. Maya was having a difficult time speaking just then because, in the light that spilled onto the landing, she had just caught a glimpse of Henri de Fourcroy's incredible eyes, which were not just blue, but purple. The purple of the tall irises that sprang up every spring under the liquid ambar trees back home in California, their purple of grape juice, of felt pens, of make-believe jewels. Once, when her mother had taken her for a haircut, Maya had been paging through the glossy magazines in the waiting room and had come across a page filled with pictures of extraordinary eyes, blue-green, green-blue, violet, orange, incredible things. It turned out that if you wore contact lenses, you could have eyes any color you wanted almost, even pink or gold, polka dots. And for one heady moment, Maya had dreamed of arriving at school with brilliant turquoise eyes, of being a different sort of Maya entirely, dazzling and mysterious. And then she had put that magazine down and forgotten all about it, until now. The eyes of the elegant young man at the door were exactly the sort of astonishing purple-violet blue that people might pay money to wear, but Maya was absolutely sure they were real. So that's why he had to wear those glasses, she thought, because passers-by might stop and stare. "The scientist's children," said the man, and he stood back to let them through. "Of course. And now you say we are cousins? Well, what a surprise! How lovely to see you again. Come in." "Actually, I'm just a friend," said Valco as he stepped over the threshold. "Come in anyway," said the man, and then he turned his purple eyes right on Maya and smiled slightly. "How kind of you to come," he said. Maya handed him his letters without saying a word, and his eyes rested on her thoughtfully for a moment, almost as if he were seeing something in her she knew nothing about, and then he focused again on James, who was, as usual, being delightful. "Come sit down and explain yourselves," said the purple-eyed man. Off the end of the long hall was a living room with comfortable chairs and a fireplace. "There are little candies somewhere here. Ah, there they are. They have caramel in them. Do you mind?" James did not mind at all. "Ask your sister to tell me why you count as cousins," said the man to James in a playful sort of way, after everyone except Maya had eaten a couple of caramels. "Tell him, Maya," said James, turning for a moment to smile at her while his hand darted out for another sweet. "He's our uncle, right?" "I'm sorry," said Maya, her voice sounding to her as if it had stayed at the other end of the long hall. "We shouldn't be bothering you this way. I mean, we're probably not related at all. It was just the family tree, those Fourcroys." "A family tree with Fourcroys in it!" exclaimed the elegant young man with a smile. "But you know, Fourcroys are very rare. I am practically the only one left, I do believe." "Except for the old man," said James confidingly, "right?" The purple eyes became very quick and sharp, for all that the face they were in held on to its warm and welcoming smile. "What old man do you mean, cousin?" said the elegant young man, and he flicked his eyes from James to Maya and back to James. "The one who takes no more deliveries from you?" But of course she couldn't say that. Indeed, she couldn't say much, not out loud. Her mouth wouldn't quite open, or it would open and the sound wouldn't come. She had wanted to ask all sorts of questions about the society he supposedly ran, about the bronze salamander downstairs that kept forgetting it should not be alive, about the old man with his opera sets and his cabinet of earths, but the words would not form themselves. Something wouldn't let her speak. Not about any of that. Not in this place. It was a strange feeling, and she didn't like it very much, especially with everybody turning to look at her and her mouth opening and closing like a flustered fish. "Maya, are you all right?" said Valco. "A little dizzy, maybe," said Maya, and alarmed, but she didn't want to admit to that for some reason, not here. "There's a washroom near the door you came in by," said the man kindly. "Why don't you go and splash your face?" So that's what she did. It was all right to leave James for a moment, because Valco was right there. James would chatter, but Valco would watch out for him, and she did feel strange. Maya walked back down the hall to the bathroom and splashed her face with cool water. It brought her back to herself, more or less. She found she was curious again. The layout of the apartment, for instance. That was strange. It seemed to stretch around the courtyard like an angular donut, because here was a hall heading away from the street, and she was sure there had been yet another hall peeking out from the door at the back of the living room. Through the doorways on the left came light from the street windows. She glanced into a couple of those rooms on her way back, studies of some kind, a sweet smell. The second study had a great old desk in the center of it, and on that desk there stood the strangest apparatus. She slipped through the door for a moment to take a closer look. The sweetness was stronger in here, not just sweet, but musky sweet, a lovely smell. There was a dark little bowl on the desk with a candle burning in it, and suspended over the candle fire was another, smaller bowl, and in it, melting, was something translucent and gold, like honey, but harder than honey, and fragrant. From that slowly melting cake of gold, not 2 inches in diameter, came the heady, wonderful sweetness that filled the air of this room and had called her in. She was so lost in that perfume that when a bell suddenly rang, the door, it must be the front door. She jumped and looked around herself in panic. She hadn't meant to sneak about like this, poking and prying, and now he would catch her at it. How awful! Her uncle cousin's footsteps went striding down the hall past the room where Maya found herself hiding. A woman's voice at the door, a pleading voice. Maya couldn't make out all the words, just Anbar, that strange word again. Anbar, and something else that Maya couldn't hear. That she was sick, was that it? And her uncle cousin was replying in his patient, pleasant way, perhaps saying that he was busy, perhaps telling her to come back some other time. She considered hiding under the desk. No, that was ridiculous. And then she looked around the room again and noticed the complexity of the wood paneling had tricked her eyes at first, that the room had another door after all. Past the desk, with its purring candle and the mysterious cake melting into some kind of slow honey, was a door with a handle. Beside it, a little table with what must be 2 more of those cakes, only these were in tidy little red velvet cases, looking like something familiar, like... But the noun slipped away when she groped for it. She put her left hand on the doorknob, and as the door began to open, her right hand, without any warning at all, reached over to the little red cases of incense, or whatever it was, and whisked one deep into the pocket of her coat. She was through the door by the time her mind caught up with her hand, and then she had only time enough to catch her breath in surprise and close the door quietly behind her, because she was back in the living room at the end of the hall, and Valco and James had turned in their chairs to look over at her, and the footsteps of her uncle cousin were already coming back in this direction down the hall. "Oh, good, you're back," said James when he saw her. "What took you so long? We were going to get our pictures taken." Indeed, the purple-eyed Fourcroy was now coming back through the door with the strangest old camera in his hands, like nothing Maya had ever seen, all bulbous with attachments and lenses and impossibly complicated meters. "Are you recovered, little cousin or niece?" he asked Maya with great courtesy. Yes, said Maya. "I'm fine." But in fact she was restless, itching to leave. The purple-eyed Fourcroy took no notice. "We've agreed, James and I, that such a reunion of cousins, since it seems we may be cousins, should be documented. Do you mind? Hold steady now." And he took a photograph right then and there, with Maya still half turned toward James's chair and Valco looking over in her direction as if he had something in particular to say. Some hidden machinery in the camera popped and whirred. The elegant young man set it down very carefully on the table and smiled. "So," he said. "I've never seen a camera like that," said James. "Wow." "Very old," said the elegant young man. "An absolute antique. Have another caramel, won't you?" Valco was craning his neck to get a better look at the camera too, but the purple-eyed Fourcroy kept getting in his way with that dish of candies. "We have to go home now," said Maya. "James, let's go." "Thank you for coming to see your old cousin Fourcroy," said the man in his friendly way, and he smiled as he said it, since he was so very much the opposite of old. "Thank you for the candy," said James, and Maya and Valco echoed something similar. "I didn't quite finish all of mine," added James. "Well, then, you'll have to come back," said the cousin-uncle, "and have more sweets another day. If I give you the entrance code, it will be easier for you to come visit, won't it? 1901. "Come on, James," said Maya. "You can't take more candy now." "It's quite an easy code to remember," continued the cousin-uncle. "It's the year the house was built, you see." "That's very long ago," said James. Their cousin-uncle looked at James, and for a moment there was a flicker of feeling in his extraordinary eyes that Maya could not make sense of. Amusement or pain or some odd mixture of the two. "Perhaps it is," he said. What long lives they have, buildings. They spiraled back down the stairs to the ground. Maya remembered what it was the little honeycakes reminded her of. Rosin. That's what violinists put on their bows to get more sound out of their strings. Was it made out of tree sap? Something like that. Maya's mother used to play the violin back before she got sick. Then one day she said the violin was too heavy and her arm was too puffy and her fingers too stiff, and she had closed up the rosin in its little satin bag and put the bow away and shut the violin case to wait until she was really healthy again. And when was that going to be? Not just not sick, but her own wonderful self again, through and through. That was what Maya most urgently wanted to know. She emerged into the sunlight of the Avenue Wrap, with James and Valco chattering at her about uncles, candies, and doors, and her heart caught her completely by surprise by being all tangled up in that other deepest question. When, oh when, cried her heart, was her mother finally going to be well?